I've been watching this guy on YouTube, and one of the things he was talking about, who's heard the saying, stay married to the process and not the outcome? Anybody heard that? So why is that so prevalent? Who's heard in our industry big check syndrome? What does that mean? I get a big check, and then I stop working. Who's done that? What happens? I'm so married to the outcome, the big check, that I get it. I got $5,000. I got $6,000. Awesome. That pays the bills for the next whole month. Man, I only got to knock a couple hours today. And then what happens? You get to the end of the month and problem, right? Because you were so focused on the outcome that when the outcome came, you stopped, okay? That's like saying, I want to go to the gym and get fit. Right? And then you go to the gym for 6 months and you're like, oh, I hit my goal. I'm done. I don't have to go to the gym anymore and I can eat Twinkies and ice cream now. When we say stuff like this, it sounds goofy when we put it in that context. If I'm talking about, I want to do anything and then I get it and then I just stop doing the production mechanism. So what I really wanted to focus on today was it's process versus outcome. When we're creating our goals and the things that we want, what being married to the process means is you have to have process goals rather than outcome goals, okay? So, one of the most inspirational people in my life, Casey Baugh, talks a lot about the fruits and the roots, and what it means is that people always see the aftermath, but they don't see what someone went through to get it. The long, hard, the hours, the days, the pain, the crying, the fear, the anxiety, all of it that goes into making a successful human being, mentally, spiritually, physically, and financially, what that person had to do to get there. And I can tell you that the one common thread that you're going to see in a person who has a successful, well-rounded, whole person paradigm is that that person is married to the process, that they are process goal orientated. That means that I realize that the outcome will happen as long as I'm continuously in the process, okay? Does anybody just want to make $5,000 in the next 2 months? No. But how easy is it for that to happen in our industry? Super easy, right? Some of us, I remember Nick came, he's like, I'm going to take 2 vacations in a row. I'm like, that's a bad idea. That's a really bad idea, Nick. He's like, I think I can do it. And then what happened? And no money. Right? Because we stop the process. The mechanism that produces the income in our job is the process, right? And if you have goals, so what people will say is, I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to gain some muscle. That's great. How are you going to do it? I don't know. Well, what are the processes? So you have to dig into the processes and get committed to the processes. If the process for that is I have to go to the gym 4 times a week, I have to stop eating sugar, I have to start drinking more water, and I have to do that consistently for 6 months to see what's going to happen, and then when I finally achieve that, I keep going. I don't just stop because I don't want to revert back to the person that I was. And it's easy to talk physical fitness because we can all relate as where we do similar things in the job, but somehow don't relate it to the rest of life and how the rest of life's mechanisms work, how the rest of life's processes work. I want to be a good father. I can't just be a good father today or this month. I have to be a good father for the rest of my life. So I have to be committed to the processes that it takes to raise a good child. What I have to do, what my commitments are, what kind of influence I'm going to be. Everything that we do has the compound effect of processes or lack thereof. So when you have goals, when you have financial goals, when you have mental goals, spiritual goals, education goals, right? So I want to be smarter. Do I just read one book? Oh, I read a book and now I'm good, I'm smarter. Or do I, yay, I'm smarter, right? How well would that have, it sounds goofy. We're all here to make money, right? And there's a lot of things that help us make money. Reading is one of them, taking in content's another, becoming a person of value is another. The process to do all of those things has to be consistent. But the primary reason everybody's in this room is to make money. Nobody wants to go out and knock doors for free. You have to realize that it's not going to be easy every day. Nothing's easy every day. The gym's not easy every day. Getting up every day at 6:30 to take my daughter to school is not easy. I do it. Eating right's not easy. Being married every day is not easy. Being a good team leader is not easy. Traveling's not easy. Most of the stuff that I do consistently is not easy. I was on the way to the gym today thinking of every reason I could to just tap out and go back home and change because I had to come here and I didn't want to be, like, it wasn't easy, but I just do it because I'm married to the processes. So when he said this, I started thinking all successful people have certain characteristics that they all do, right? Well, I'm going to let Pat speak in a minute, but I've known Pat for a lot of years. Pat is an incredibly hard worker and one of the most incredibly, and he's humble, one of the most talented door knockers in the industry. He's a very good door knocker and salesman, just very well-rounded person. But he's put years of dedication into teams, building himself, his personal. We were just talking about some of the personal coaching he's done over the years. He does yoga, meditation. He does just all kinds of really cool stuff that has turned him into the person that he is. But it's processes, processes, processes. So I'm just going to leave with this. Stay focused on the process and the outcome will always happen over and over and over. I'm just going to tell you this. This is the honest to God truth, guys. How much money I'm going to make, this has absolutely I don't even think of it. I don't. It's regardless. She gets the checks. I don't look at the checks. She talks to me. I don't even want to know. She texted the other day. She said, check this, how to go. I'm like, I don't even care. The money is not relevant to me, and it never has been. It's relevant in the sense of, can I make it to pay my bills? But how much money is not my goal. Is how much better can Lee be than he was before? How many more people can Lee affect positively? How much better can Lee be? How much more can Lee learn? Where I feel good when I'm doing this, when I'm giving. I feel good when I'm influencing people's lives. I feel good when I'm learning. I feel good when I'm growing. I feel good in the process. I feel bad when I stop the process and I settle. And I do it. I don't go to the gym enough. I don't eat right. I don't read a book for 4 weeks. I'm not keeping up on my game, who I am in my marriage and my parenting. My teeter-totters get out of whack and I'm dragging one on the side of the ground. And I realize because I'm human and I can't just keep the motor running all the time, but that's where I feel bad. So I like to stay in the zones where I'm good, and the zones where I'm good is in the process. I want you guys to think about that, because if you're just thinking about the paycheck, you're going to fail. Because you'll get the paycheck, and it will pay the bills, and then you will stop the action, and then all the crops will die. And it's that consistent effort of doing the process. All right, guys. Pat, you're with Vivint right now, right? Okay. So anybody seen 90 Day Fiancé? Nobody? Everybody? All right. So Pat Mendes, as you guys have heard, you watch it, Salvador. Don't be lying, fool. Pat Mendes, as you guys know, was my original trainer at Vivint. An amazing human being. He's always been an inspiration to me. I've always had a massive amount of gratitude for Pat. He's one of the most amazing salespeople that I know. Leaders, coaches, well-rounded individuals. Amazing door knocker. So, Pat, welcome.
So, guys, thanks for having me. I don't really do too many things like this, but I've been in the door-to-door industry. I'll do a little background so you guys kind of know who I am. But, yeah, I started actually in 2013 with Vivint, selling smart home, doing a summer program. I was the #1 rookie in the company that year. And from there, I went back to what I was passionate about, which was weightlifting. So I trained for the Olympics from 2008 to 2015. And so 2014 and 15, I was off the doors. I took the money I made in the summer. I started a supplement company, and that kind of funded my training as, I was gearing up for the 2016 games. And, I've had a ton of different lives, so it's kind of funny. Like, that was a big part of my life, weightlifting, but it came to an end. And the first thing I did was I called my old manager and I got right back on the doors. For me, I still haven't found a better opportunity, for myself anyways, where, the time for money exchange is just so massive here. And after my summer, I came back here to Vegas. Believe it or not, I don't know if you guys have been in Vegas or been knocking doors since like 2015, but we went through a huge recession here. There was no one here for a really long time, just especially a Vivint presence. So we started back the office. It was my job, and I never managed, never did anything before. I met a friend of a friend at a Starbucks, and that was the start of the Vegas office. And 9 months later, we were the #1 office in the year-round program that year. Met Lee, met a couple other heavy hitters, but I was 25, and I was managing guys who were like in their 40s, and it was like a really I was like, this is weird, like I was not. It wasn't a situation. I got thrust into it, and I think just with my background, I tend to take things like very serious, and like whether it's training people or being their manager or their leader, I really focus on like the process of like how are we getting these sales. And so from there, I did in alarms, like doing 300 accounts a year is like similar to the solar 100 installs. So I did that 5 years in a row from 2015 to 2020. And probably by now I've managed like, I don't know, over 10,000 accounts at least, and I've sold over 2,000 personally. So I've had quite the career in door-to-door, and it wasn't until 2019 where my personal life caught up with me, and what ended up happening was I went through a divorce, and that's actually what kind of sprung. And the reason why I'm telling you guys a story is like these traumatic things that might be happening in your life, whether that can be just someone slamming a door in your face or someone telling you no, to like something really traumatic like divorce or loss of life or something like that. You can use those type of events to really catapult you. So during that time, I found Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but huge. Like I recommend it to everyone I talk to. Becoming Supernatural. It's his best book, in my opinion. And he just really breaks down something that, I've actually practiced my entire life, but I didn't really know I was. And what he mainly teaches is meditation and just the principles of being present. And, after really diving in, I went to a week-long retreat of his, and like I dove into like what he practices. I started implementing on the doors. And so it was December 2019. I went to his retreat, and it was just life-changing. The next year, 2020, we had COVID and whatnot. I mean, I know for most people in the door-to-door industry, 2020 was like one of their best years, and that's because everyone was home. So it made our jobs a lot easier, because once you learn how to sell, like that's the hardest part of the job, is just, getting in front of people. But yeah, I mean, my life just has catapulted since that moment. And so, I want to kind of go into how that kind of plays into what we see on the doors and how it's effective. So, I mean, I'm sure now that you guys are in the industry, you've heard of like the crazy successful people that have done door-to-door before, like Mark Cuban, the Paul Mitchell guy, and just like how door-to-door sales is like, whether you stay with it as long as like I have, or, you end up turning it into something else. What door-to-door does at its core is it really teaches the people who understand it, you to be present. And learning that is very hard, because as an animal like we are, to survive, we stick with our past experiences. You watch a caveman get eaten by a lion, you realize, okay, I got to stay away from lions, and that sticks with you forever. Well, it's like, in door-to-door, it's similar. As we're learning, we know the person, and it's not really prevalent here because it's the same utility company, but like in Texas, if they have TXU, they're at 17 cents a kilowatt hour. It's just, and it's all over the place in Texas. But it's like, man, someone has TXU, like that's your customer, you stick with that. And, when you're knocking doors, especially when you first start, it's rough. And a lot of people quit because they just can't get over the fact they have one day, bad day, 2 bad days, maybe 3 bad days. And now they think they are stuck in the familiar past. They are stuck there. And so when they go out, instead of being present with that person that they're talking to, they're thinking about everything that just happened to them. And in this industry, we get to practice it every single door. And the more you can be present, the higher your frequency is, the closer you are to, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, God. And, I'm not a religious person, but that part is something like I've definitely experienced, and, I've seen it just happen. And when you're present, you're in the process of, you're in creation. And so that's one thing that I have just seen, I've taught my guys, something super new, something before, I trained Lee, but something that I've, personally witnessed with so many people is just getting them to be present, making that eye contact, and then what will happen is you'll start having a predictable future, which is, if you are present, is going to be success because, especially with solar or if it's alarms, doesn't matter what you're selling, you're providing a great service to people. You're typically saving them money. You're in my house I just bought, I have the appraisal of the house I bought, had paid off solar, $15,000 added to my value of my home because the solar was paid off. So, they're making a good investment. There's a lot of good things that you can do. So, one thing that, I'll tell you guys to definitely start focusing on is making sure, when you are talking to people, you're present. And whether that's, just talking to your family, your friends, doesn't matter who it is, being present and giving them that attention, it goes a long way. And people can tell the difference between the sales rep who is, scared that he's going to get another door slammed in his face when he's talking to them, to the sales rep that's just listening to them, really just in their life and understanding what's going on. And so, that's kind of what I wanted to share with you guys today is just, the power of that and really getting into those, just look up Becoming Supernatural and getting into that book because it'll take you a long way. It'll take you on a journey. I've been on a journey. This last 3 years, going on 3 years, for me, when I was in that meditation retreat, I made $500,000 that year. It wasn't really about making money. I was in a good place, but I didn't have what I wanted, which was a family. And so this year, as crazy as my life's been, being on TV and stuff, now my wife's pregnant, I have a wife, baby on the way. I've created all of that just from that one experience that I've had, and then continuing to practice that experience as much as I can every day. And it's a lot easier said than done. But if you guys can do it, I'm telling you, it's crazy what you can create. And you're probably doing it already, but just not aware of it, especially if if some of you guys have come from a minimum wage job and now you're doing this and you're killing it. You're creating all of that. And another big thing that I learned from this big experience, which is really helpful on the doors too, is you create your environment. All of this, me being in front of you guys today is a creation that, I created. It's not the environment creates you. Now, can it help? Can it be affected? Yeah. But how do you think someone like LeBron James, who, dad leaves, single mom, lives in the hood, is about to be a billionaire? His environment was not set up for success, and there's a ton of stories. My story is very similar. My mom, drug addict, dad, alcoholic, parents got divorced, all that stuff. But here I am, and now I get to take care of my parents. It wasn't an environment set up for success, but yet, I've strived through it. And the same thing happens on the doors. In a neighborhood, that's your environment or your area, right? And how many guys and how many women, everyone, they'll blame their area, right? Well, I've knocked all of Las Vegas, and I've done more accounts than anyone else that I know of here in Las Vegas in my industry. Like, you can search around. There are very few people who've sold 300 accounts here in a year, and I did 350 my first year here, and everyone said, like, Vegas is tough, it's impossible, blah, blah. Tell you what, for me, Vegas is a hustler's town. And people respect the fact that you're a hustler and you're getting out there. The hard part about, Vegas is, the schedule's weird. There is no prime time here at all. And all that means, like, when you're knocking and, if you guys are struggling knocking here, take it from a guy with a ton of experience, like knocking here. It's just, you have to put in the hours no matter what. And Lee saw it, like, I'm an expert at selling, before noon. Like, expert. Like, it is what I do best. Like, I can get 3 deals before noon. So, and it's like, it's really, and that goes like any time of the day here, some random person's going to be home. And that's not like that. I moved away. I lived in Texas for a while, normal schedules, normal times, normal prime times. And so, if you guys are like ever struggling with getting your production up, it really, like, you just have to keep putting in the hours, like, and you have to be consistent with it, because if you're not, it's the most random place to knock. Like, some days I go out and I'm popping a deal in an hour. Some days I go and I don't talk to someone for 3 hours because the way I prospect and knock. And it's like that all the time. Doesn't matter who you are, how good you are, like, that is just the key here in Las Vegas. So just for you guys, like, personally knocking, like, that's one thing I would definitely consider. I have a guy right now, he's decided to kind of take his schedule 7 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes, but he's going 7 right now. And he's just doing like 4 to 5 hours a day and just getting consistent time on the doors and trying to get as many days as he can just so he can have production. And like, now he's having his best week. So just some like local stuff that you guys can kind of take with you. But how many of you guys have heard of that, like living in the, familiar past or, the predictable future? Because if you keep repeating your thoughts, your future, you already know what your future is. You already know what's going to happen, and some of those futures are really good. Like, if you've had success and, you're living a process that, keeps you succeeding, then that's not a bad place to be. But if you're not where you want to be, you have to change your thoughts. You have to change, like, how you're going to approach, every customer, and you really have to change within, and then, your outcome or your environment will start to change. And it starts with, like, the people you surround yourself with, just daily just habits, but really just being present, taking that time to be present, being grateful. And, one more thing I'll talk about, this is a really good, so this meditation, it's called Changing Boxes. And it was like a groundbreaking experience for me. So how many guys, I want you guys to kind of, we'll do this a little bit together. So close your eyes, and there's probably, I want you guys to just think about something traumatic, and it could be doors, it could be personal, but some experience that you've had in the past that, the only thing you could think of is, anger, sadness, loneliness, just really negative, low energies. And I want you to take that experience and just kind of think about it a little bit, let it dwell. And then, as hard as it might be, I want you to take the highest energies you can and just throw it at that experience. Gratitude, love, passion. And then think about what that experience would look like and how, if you can overcome that, what would the future look like? And that little practice right there is something that you can do, honestly, sometimes on a daily basis if you're having a bad day on the doors. But what it does is, if anything that brings your energy low, like I said, so low frequencies, low emotions is really what it comes down to, because emotions are just frequencies that we kind of put out into the world. And so that's why, Lee, I think I've been here for, 30, 40 minutes. I think I've heard him say the word gratitude 100 times already. So, and, it's awesome. It's great being around someone like that. Like for me, I'm attracted to that, because that's what ends up happening is those frequencies, they actually attract your future. Because what happens is frequencies, they move in waves, right? So like a lower frequency is like this. And then, you got a little lower. And then, don't mind my drawing. And then eventually frequencies start moving like this. All these frequencies are higher emotions like love, gratitude, those type of, those are really the only two I can think of off the top of my head, but there's a lot more. But those are the big ones. Happiness, those are the ones that move your life faster and attract it. Most people who, get divorced and, go through something, but they want to experience, to have a family, you need a partner. So it was like for me, at this meditation retreat, it was crazy. I actually I saw everything. And what ended up happening was I kept since today, I've done my best to keep my frequencies as high as possible. And, within 2 years, bang, I'm starting a family. Exactly what I wanted. And whatever it is that you guys want, what Joe Dispenza teaches is all you have to do is take your intention and think about, you want to take your intention and then match it to the emotion of what that brings. And that's how you create. So gratitude is really the most important frequency you can have, because what gratitude does is it gives you the feeling that it already happened. And the truth is, he goes way more in this than I can, but as you're present, you're entering, the quantum field, time and space doesn't exist. And if you believe in this stuff or you just study it and want to learn more about it, basically the truth of the world is everything you want's already happened already. And we are just flying around waiting to match up with what that is. And if you can bring your frequencies higher, you will get there faster. Like what he talks about is this is matter versus matter. So for example, the day after the retreat, the Monday back, I had my best day ever in my career. I sold 9 in a day. I was flying high. I could feel the people on the other side of the door. And to even just get in front of 9 qualified prospects is hard enough, is impossible in a day. And not only that, so I pretty much sold everyone I talked to, and I could feel that they were home even before I walked in there. It was insane. It was the craziest experience I've ever had on the doors. And, that's how powerful this stuff is. So whatever you guys want, whatever your future looks like for yourself, tie it to, be grateful for it because it's already happened. It's just, you haven't met it yet. And what I've really learned from all of this is if you're forcing yourself to be successful, if you're trying to force these things, you're in a lower frequency. You're versing matter versus matter. It takes a long time for that to happen. Why does it take one guy, 3 years to become successful at door-to-doors and another guy who started at the same time, 3 months? We're doing the same fucking thing. It shouldn't be, it's not rocket science. No one's magical, right? But it's just how they live their lives, and how they think, really affects how fast you get there. It really does. That's how you create fast. That's how you move quickly. And, like I said, I've had a lot of different experiences, whether it was weightlifting, as far as success goes or door to door. or, you know, now, like, you know, becoming a dad, that type of stuff, like, those things have happened, and I've done it a lot faster than most people. And, you know, I couldn't explain it, but, like, now I can. And that was something I've always, like, being a trainer or a coach or whatever, like, one of the things, like, I try to figure out, like, is, like, why the hell are people more successful than others? Like, what is the process that made it so I am the only American to ever snatch over 440 pounds, to ever live? Like, and there's been a lot of Americans. Like, there's a lot of people. No one's ever lifted more than me, ever. And I was fucking 19 years old. I didn't even know what a snatch was 2 years before, you know, I snatched 200 kilos, like 440 pounds. I didn't even know what it was. Like, and same thing, like with doors. Dude, being rookie of the year, I never knocked doors before. A guy had 60 accounts on me going in from the preseason going into the summer. Like, I wasn't supposed to win. That's a lot of accounts. That's like 2 months worth of production. But yet on the last day of the summer, I sold 4 and I won by 1 account. It was like, it's just the speed of which you move is based off how you control your emotions and what frequency you're moving at. And there's a ton, like, whether people believe it or not, like, there's just a lot of examples, and you guys have probably already had them in your lives and just, you know, maybe never really thought of it, because before, you know, I was 29, like, I didn't even know really any of this stuff existed. I never meditated before. Like, that wasn't my thing. I was a big, strong weightlifter guy. Like, you know, I had to change who I was. And that's a big part of this, is it's a lot of change and it's uncomfortable. And that's why people don't do it, because when you feel comfort, what you're feeling is familiarity, which means you're living in the familiar past. And that's what makes it so hard for people to change. All right, that's all I got. Yeah, Q&A.
So I heard you say like 3 or a few different ways on like how you're present on the doors. Like you listen, you look at them in the eye, maybe even do like the meditation part. But I've also heard you say like on the podcast that like some of the best knockers have like some of the best self-talk. And like has your like self-talk changed since like you did meditation, like that meditation, and if so, like how is it, if you don't mind asking?
Yeah, I think my self-talk, you know, it's changed a lot. Like before, I was just like, you know, focusing on the fact that like I was going to sell the next person. I was making like a matter thing. I was like, next person I talk to, I'm going to sell. Like I'm the best. Like that's what I would like usually, you know, tell myself when I'm in my car. And, you know, and it worked. You know, like it works, like that works. Now I'm like, I really focus like, hey, just be present. Don't worry about like the numbers you have to hit. Don't worry about what happened on the last door. Don't think, you know, because this guy's house is really big, you know, he's going to, you know, want to do a bunch of research and like all the things that we tell ourselves. And he's probably already got a solar guy and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's like, you know, that's the biggest thing I do now is I really try to be present. And then, yeah, just throw myself some gratitude, like just be happy that, you know, I'm out here and I have, you know, an opportunity to create my income, to create my future. And it's not based off, you know, me just, you know, sitting behind a cash register and just hoping like one day, you know, someone will leave me a big tip or something. Like, I don't know. I've never had a regular job, so I've only done full commission sales.
So a lot of what, thank you so much for sharing, is amazing. A lot of it is compound effect. My question is, when you did the meditation retreat, before, did you have any experience with meditation, or you had none? You did this retreat, you had read the supernatural book, extremely enlightening, and then did you just start transforming into?
Yeah, so I was not like the normal, I kind of, like going into the meditation retreat, I couldn't meditate before. Like I just couldn't do it, you know, ADD, whatever you want to call it. It just, I didn't get it. Like I just didn't understand it. Like that was me. I was the guy who was like, who fucking can meditate? You know, like this isn't a thing. And I was like, you know, I tried it for maybe once or twice, but then I just said, you know what, fuck it. Like I'm going to go to this retreat. I'm going to learn about meditation. And what you do in this retreat is you literally meditate for 6 hours a day. Sometimes more. Like you're in meditations for, some of them were 2 hours long. I never did, 10 minutes before. But, that's where, some of the things, because, there is, part of it is, he creates an environment for you to succeed in the meditation. And, you spend a pretty good amount of money to be there. Like, it's 1,000 people just all together in a room, like in the highest frequencies like you can imagine. And like, it's magical. I've done 2 of them. And I highly, highly recommend it. And it doesn't even matter if you believe it or not, just experience it. I've got to take a couple people there.
What is it?
So Joe Dispenza, just go on his, so it's his retreats, and it's even crazy. So I try to go to his retreat. It took me 3 times because they sell out within 10 minutes. So they send you an email, and I was actually in the middle of a competition, and I just happened to stop at the gas station. I got the email as I stopped that it was open, and I signed up like as fast as I could, and I got in. And yeah, they do them now all over the country. I think it's a little easier now to get in than it was before, because it was kind of just, he's been doing them for a little bit, but now he has a lot of them, like in Dallas, and they're not crazy expensive either. I mean, the whole thing was probably like $5,000 and this was in we were in Cancun, and it was just like amazing beach resort, and it was just incredible. And I got to meet, it was one of the things like I struggle with, and I still do, but I'm getting better, is like just talking to random people that aren't customers. Like I'm a very like inverted person. Or was it inverted? Introvert. Yeah, introvert. So I'm like an introverted salesman. Like unless I know exactly what I need to talk about, I don't really like talking about it. And like, it's just, like I go to the gym, and, people like they go to the same gym for years, and everyone's like, yeah, like finally someone comes up to me, he's like, yeah, how come you don't talk to anyone? I was like, I don't know, because I'm at the gym. Like, I'm not here to talk. Like, I just go and do my thing and go home. They're like, yeah, it's kind of weird. I was like, oh, I don't know. And, but yeah, like, what was really cool was there was this lady, and she just did this speech about how she cured brain cancer through meditation. And it was like stage 4 brain cancer. And she was on the stage. And then I made this, as I'm there, I'm thinking about the things I need to improve on. And even at this meditation retreat, I was like, fuck, man, all these random people. Like, I'm like, man, I can't eat lunch by myself. And what happened was I sat down at the table by myself. And then, I attracted that lady that was on stage. She sat down, and I got to talk to her about her experiences through everything. And, meditation, it's just like working out. Like, it's not easy. And it's not something that you're necessarily going to enjoy while you're doing it. And that's okay, because it's teaching you why it's not comfortable is because you're being present and it's not familiar. So it's teaching you to get out of that familiar past. And that's the key, with meditation. And it's very, very uncomfortable. And yeah, the older you are, the harder it is, because by 35, I mean, the one study he tells us is 95% of your thoughts in a day are repetitive, which makes sense because the older you are, the more experiences you have, the more you have to hang on to. Like when you're a kid, everyone knows you're curious, and it's a lot different. So yeah, but it's it's crazy. Like once you read the book and get into that, he teaches you the science behind it, because I'm a like logical guy, and that's what actually made me want to go do the retreat, because now I'm like, okay, he's got me sold. Like this makes sense. Now I want to figure it out. Like I want to see what it actually can do for me. Any other questions?
Just what? So I know your story. You know, the coffee shop, the fitness when you started, the office, the GM program. I remember part of it was that there wasn't really a pitch. So Pat created Pat's takeover pitch, which there are other takeovers pitched, but Pat's takeover pitch has now become one of the top takeover pitches in the industry. But that wasn't there. And I remember the stories of you walking for miles and miles and miles and being analytical and writing stuff down and like figuring out objections and who you were. So I'd like the team just to kind of hear the early part of your career and like what those were and how you like were analytical and created because you created the person you are by those first experiences.
Yeah, so the start of my career was summer sales, and summer sales, you go to a market, you're in, usually company housing, and you're working. This was about 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then a 12-hour day on Saturday. I'd get dropped off in neighborhoods, and that's it. I saw my manager just do 4 sales my first day, and I told him, I was like, dude, all I need to do is just learn how to sign someone up. I'll figure out the rest. Because, way I came into this industry is kind of like how I approached everything else in life, which, trying to get better at. But, no one's going to help me. It's on me to figure this out. And regardless if they are, it's still on me. You can have all the help in the world. And I've developed different trainings over the years. And, one thing I going into 2020, I created this new training, which was insane. I'll go over that. But in the very beginning, basically, I would just go nonstop. And that summer experience, you're just creating. That's why I love the job. You're just I was just coming up with shit off the top of my head, and it was just sick. Because I'm just talking to everyone I can, and it's literally just every single door, nonstop, bop, bop, bop. My biggest day, and I walked 13 miles on a Saturday, which was horrible. But typically I average 8 miles a day. That's how much knocking we do. And what ended up happening was I looked at that summer and I was like, most of my customers, they came from 2 blocks. They were either new homeowners or they were takeovers. And it was towards the end of the summer, I really started hitting big numbers. I was doing 13, 14 a week, every single week. And, I was like, okay, and I looked at it. So then when I came here, same thing, year round, it's a little different. I got my car. I'm not really going to be walking and knocking. And so I went into these new construction neighborhoods, and man, people were fucking pissed. It was I'm the 10th guy there. There's all these ADT dealers just smashing them up. And it's cool, they're easy sales. But at the same time too, I'm there's I don't really like this. So I was all right, let me learn and perfect the takeover. And so I got a chance to, watch a top producer for a day. I saw him do his pitch. I cleaned it up, made it my own version, and then just multiplied. Gave it to my recruit. Watched him sell his first day. Gave it to Jeremy. Gave it to Justin. Gave it to Lee. Gave it to all these guys. Dave Prince. And I was taking guys who had been doing door to door, for years, and they were having their best year with me, just from following my process. And so I knew I was really good at creating a process. Then fast forward, as I got more into management, more into training, I was dude, why did my manager and how I was, even Lee, 1 or 2 days, that's about it. You give a guy 1 or 2 days, show him a couple deals, maybe 3, and he's off on his own. I was why do we do that? So in 2018, I was starting to really cash on overrides. I was really starting to build up a big team, and I was okay, you know what? And, you know, I think in numbers. So I'm like, if a guy does 200 accounts, that's like roughly like 40 grand a year off that one guy. So why am I only spending 2 or 3 days with one guy? And, you know, there's two big principles in door-to-door. It's like, you know, you recruit everyone and you get 100 people to do one sale a week. Bam, that's 100 deals. Well, I've gotten 6 people to do 100 sales in a week. And like that has been my philosophy through this, is because like I know if I can, you know, really keep someone and teach them this process, they're going to stay and, you know, have a lot of success, because it's hard to leave when you're having success. Like, why would you go do anything else? So in 2020, I really doubled down and I spent a month with one person, an entire month, like perfecting this. And it was actually the first female rep I ever trained. And it was a huge investment of time and money. Like, you know, I was with her. We closed like 10 deals that month. I did 10, she did 10 every single day. Like, you know, and she was a grinder. Like, that was one thing. That's why I kept going with her. You know, as a manager and a leader, like, you know, you learn as you go. Like, you put your time into people that are putting the same time in. And like, so she was grinding with me. So I spent a month with her. Came up with like an entire process, not just door pitch, but then in-home presentation, like how to sign people up. And then eventually that 1 month with the rep turned into like 2 weeks, and then it turned into a week. And then now it's like, you know, 3 or 4 days, and, you know, I'm busting out 200 account reps, like every single person, you know, that comes in the door who, you know, is comfortable selling and rejection. Like, this isn't for everyone. That's why we get paid so much. If everyone could do it, then, you know, our paychecks would be a lot less. And so, like, that's, you know, one thing that, you know, there's still that part of it, but it's definitely something that's teachable. So the process is just really has come down to, like, seeing who my customers were. Because, I don't know, Lee, you probably teach the sales cycle a little bit, right? Right. Yeah, and I mean, so in order, once you close enough deals, that just makes you better at prospecting. And so when a rep starts, they don't know who their customer is because they haven't closed any deals. And so, you know, teaching people how to prospect is the number one thing you can do as a manager. And then obviously getting those other parts in, teaching them how to qualify, and just giving them a process for that, then the rest kind of takes care of itself. Because if you start the sales process or the sales cycle off right, you know, you're already a leg up. You already have less objections than another prospect. Like, that's the whole idea, is you prospect to minimize objections.
And there was 2 teams. There was Moriello's team, which was NHOs, and there was Pat, and he did takeovers. And I remember we went into this neighborhood, and Pat had his iPad, and it was dots, and we just drove down the street, and he's marking little blue dots, and I have no clue what's going on here. I'm just nervous. And we trained on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You got me 3 deals. I remember the first deal was that military couple, and I kept the sign, had that sign for like 2 years. It was like my fucking first sign. And it was just the sale. It was just keeping things the same. And I've talked about our office a lot in this office. And what the people ahead of me that were doing, I was always on the top of the board. It was you and Moriello, me, Mott. And it was just work. It was work and consistency and following a really simple process. And I love what we talked about today and staying in the moment, because I've had a lot of unconscious awareness where I'm doing things successfully, but I'm not aware of why I'm doing them, right? And this staying in the moment is one thing that I've not always been perfect at, but it's always been something that's been consistent in my life, where, you know, I have the same things you guys have. I have the same life problems, family problems, sister, cancer, mom, died, stuff, right? But at some point, I'm able to pick myself off my knee and stay in the process and stay present in the moment and not be ruled by those things and overcome those things with gratitude, a wealth mindset, a positive mindset, and not live in the past. And as I've become more consciously aware, right, these are some of the things that I've found that really impact me in my career, is taking realizing that I'm good at a certain few things, like that unconscious awareness, and then when it dawns on me what I'm doing kind of good, then I can really enhance those things and make them better, right? And so I love what we talked about, the be present, and that is just in so many areas of our lives, in our personal lives, in the work life. Who's gotten up in the morning and just had a bad day yesterday, not related to work, and it turns into a bad day today at work? And it's going to be a bad day for sure, because you know it's going to be a bad day, because it has to be a bad day, because yesterday freaking sucked. So today's got to suck. And then guess what happens? Today sucks, right? I can do that for like 3 days in a row, and then I catch. And then, you know, my habits start to kick in. Be present, do what you need to do, gratitude. I have all these things that I do. So thank you, Pat, for coming in. Yeah. A lot of gratitude for Pat. I think sometimes that the meeting I had with John at Joe's Steak when I was at Presidential, if I would have said no, I want you guys to think about that. Or if I wouldn't have gone out with Pat, how much different life could be if I would have just made a few different choices. If Misty, I was gonna go with Mott to Mint, who closed down, and John re-recruited me, and I stayed, but Misty went into solar because she quit her job to move to California. If she wouldn't have done that. These little decisions that we make and commit to and burn our boats and follow the people in front of us, right? This is a lot of what is Pat doing? And then I was just like a little puppy for like, what is Pat doing? And then I just did what Pat did because it was successful. He worked. He was consistent. Pat would tweak out at night. Like he would come in the morning and his whole hood would be like he would spend like an hour like mapping out. Pat's pretty methodical on some of his stuff. But I just did the most of what they were doing that I could do, that I could comprehend, and I just did that, right? And so these little decisions where you just do what successful people are doing can have such a massive impact. Everybody in this room is here right now because of him. It's true. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But the amount of people that I've impacted, the amount of people that he's impacted. So Nico is the guy that he was talking about. Massive impact. And how many people has he impacted? How many people has John impacted? How many people can you guys impact? So when you commit to these things, you can't always see the top of the mountain. And here's the good news, guys. There's no top of the mountain. You can just grow spiritually. But the amount that you can do and what you can do. Do you have something, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm talking for Sandra and myself. We've been with Lee for 3 years. I even feel like I know you. We always talk about you.
Yeah. So thanks for coming in. We're going to do a podcast, so we'll get a couple hours in with that, so that'll come out in a couple weeks. So again, thanks, Pat.